Do we think that he is really in love with her, that he is now grieving the loss of who he thought he could was potentially his new girlfriend? I mean, he says it's been over a decade since he's been out on the dating scene. He's never been single.
I mean, yes and no. Like I do think, as crazy as this sounds, I think Sandoval, like, look at him. He's like, oh, and he's in his feelings, and nail polish and goth rock and cover songs. Like, I do think that he is a relationship guy, as crazy as that sounds. You know what I mean? Like, he was with Ariana for a long time and he was miserable and, didn't have enough sense to break up with her. His dick was too small. And I guess he's taking lessons from Schwartzy over there about
Let's see.
being a man. But so I think he's like a relationship type. I actually really do. So I think that he was in love with her and had feelings for her, but I mean, he's also loves himself the most. And I mean, he loves the scandal. I don't care what nobody says. He's loving this.
Oh, we
And
love
and by
and
the way, if you really step back from this, I mean, you guys can hate him. He's the fucking star of the show. I mean, this whole show is like, well, I mean, he's
you
there
think?
at least this season. I mean, he's there and this, and everything is about him entering and leaving and say, I mean, it's every other word is about Tom. So at least this season, like, you know how they say Kyle should, when Kyle just did her thing on, don't you talk to me. You had a horse and a dating coach. I bought my daughter a car and she was 2 and now she has a car and leaving for college and blah blah. People are like,
Mm,
people should owe their check to Kyle for this season.
they should.
Sure. And
They
2
should.
seasons ago, they should give it to Erica. And so I think this season you should give your check to Tom. It really is all about him to me this season. And it's not positive or negative. That's just what I see.
What did you make of Ariana confessing in the episode that she was down to her last $2,000 before Sandoval? And do you feel like bitch should recognize? Thank you, Tom. Now, to be honest, she can't do that because the genius, I think, of this show and season 11 is you really have this, you know, I'm not going to equate it to a Shakespearean storyline, but you do have this, you have good versus evil a little bit. You have, heartbreak and deception and, friends caught in the middle. I mean, so she can't be like, hey, you know what? Actually, I love the fact that you've now made me rich and got me saved me from debt. So she's got to take the line of like, he's a scumbag, he's awful, he's heartless. This person is the most narcissistic nut you've ever met. But I thought that was, I didn't think she was that desperate. Did you? I mean, I thought that was a good scene. I give her a lot of props because I was like, damn, I believe her that I think finances were real tough.
Rumor is none of them were making anything on this show. That it was all that
Yeah.
they weren't making a lot. I have mutual friends in common with Scheana, and she's always telling these mutual friends of mine how broke she is. Granted, I mean, we just learned the salaries of these Vanderpump Rules kids. They're up in like the 700s, like a Scheana, and she just bought the house for 2.5. So I'm starting to think every time my friends tell me that Sheena's saying how poor she is, she might just be one of those who like cries poor. I believe her. I mean, what do I think? I think honestly, if you want my overall arching think of
Yeah,
where my
yeah, that
mind goes,
was good
don't
last.
ever, people ever, unless you're Lisa Vanderpump and have deep pockets, don't ever open a fucking restaurant. Don't open a bar. Don't open a sandwich shop. Don't open a coffee shop. Don't open anything. It is a tough fucking business. As someone now who has a new apartment in New York that I am furnishing, this is the end. I will never do this again. I mean, a dollar becomes a hundred because like it is like you just bleed money. So I mean,
Oh, well,
man,
furniture is a
like
losing
you
game.
had the money and you
Okay.
made something. You weren't making a lot. And then you want to open this. So it's like, I believe, yeah, she cleared out her entire, you say one thing and then they're like, okay, well, now we have to tear out the stove because it's not up for code. So, that's an extra 90,000 and there's this and that. And so, yeah, I believe when you sign the permit and lease and I mean, they're paying for that space that you and I have walked by which cannot be cheap no matter how small it is, because it is on the strip in West Hollywood, just off the strip. So yeah, I think that she probably was making money and just saw the bank account getting drained and drained because of something about her. So A, don't ever open nothing, especially in LA or New York, people. But I believe it. So and the rumor is Lisa Vanderpump also said to her, "You better figure your shit." I don't know if I believe this one, but before Scandal, you better figure your shit out, because like you better come up with a storyline, girl, because you're on the chopping block. Oh, I mean, do I believe that? I mean, she was still with Tom, so like, why would she be on the chopping block? What would she be, a plus one? I don't know. She wasn't like not part of the show, but I mean, look, all the things worked out, which is why I don't understand it. Like, I understand the horror and the PTSD and the feelings of finding on someone's phone, there's your boyfriend, and there's a video of your good friend playing with herself, and they're having it. I understand that is a tough pill to swallow, but I just think you have another boyfriend now, and you have lots of money, and you have Broadway and all of this. And yeah, it all worked out.
Hey, I always say the universe has got your back. When you believe that God is working for you, he does all the time. Yeah, look, I mean, no one's ever gone from 2 grand to over 2 mil like that. I mean, that is impressive. I liked it though, because I thought that scene explained more of the resentment towards Tom, which also was about the house. She basically said, when we started making any little amount of money, we purchased this house. And then for the rest of the time, I was trying to desperately play catch up. So it sounds like they kind of got in over their heads with purchasing their house. Now I understand why she's so hell bent on, like, I ain't leaving. I finally can pay my part of the mortgage. I blood, sweat, tears. I dreaded that, because nothing's worse, right? I mean, you own 3 homes. I'm trying to purchase one. Okay. And I was talking to my financial advisor yesterday, and she's like, wait a year. Okay. You do not need,
Really?
she's like, you're trying to have a child. You don't want this you and I live in Los Angeles. I mean, a $1.1 million house here is a dump. I mean, a dump. You could throw a cap through it, and you got to move into that.
Or
And then
it's right near an airport, because I
or it's
think
right near an
James's
airport.
James's was around 1.1, but he also put money into it too. Yeah, so there you go.
I mean, dump.
A
So
dump.
she's like, you don't want this extra pressure. I mean, your mortgage, when your earthquake insurance, your taxes, you're talking over 7 grand a month for a 1.1. Okay.
Honey,
She's like, you don't want that extra stress. Have the baby. You're fine where you are. Someday you're going to buy a house. It's only the perception. So take this off the table. I understood where Ariana was coming from in that scene, because I'm like, oh, yeah, they jumped in when they got their first couple of
yeah.
Vanderpump checks. And she probably had to borrow money from Tom, or Tom kind of held it over her. And now she's like, look,